Welcome back to day 3 of Firebase week. In day 1, we showed you how you can take a Firestore kind of non-canonical API and turn it into a beautiful, canonical, simple REST API for our to-do API that we created. Yesterday on day 2, we added authentication to that using API key authentication provided by Zuplo. And what was particularly cool is how we were able to modify the request to add the user ID when creating, check that the user owned the to-do when updating and deleting, and only queried for to-do items where the user owned that particular to-do. What we want to do today is go to the next level with this. Let's imagine this is an API that you want to ship to the world. You want to give it to the world. What you're going to need to do that is educate them. You're going to need developer documentation, and you're going to need a way for them to come in and self-serve manage their API keys. So I'm going to show you how to do that using Zuplo, which includes a free developer portal fully powered by OpenAPI. And guess what? We're going to cheat. I don't want to write OpenAPI. It's kind of cool. It is the industry standard specification for documenting a REST API, and it's what natively powers Zuplo. So we've already done a bunch of work on this. But I would prefer to not have to do this manually. So what we're going to actually do here is use ChatGPT, which is nice. ChatGPT is very familiar with OpenAPI. And so what we're going to do is we're going to cut and paste our OpenAPI doc here. Take it over to ChatGPT. We're using 4.0. And actually, let's just paste that in. But then above that, so I've just pasted in my OpenAPI. Oops. Yep, it's going to give me some summary. Nope, I don't need you to do that. I don't need you to do that. I don't need that. Chill out. Chill out, ChatGPT. Calm down. Yep, save your tokens. So I've pre-written a query here which says the OpenAPI is for a CRUD to-do service. The to-dos will look like this. ID is a string. Shouldn't be in the insert. Description, we don't need that. Num. Complete false is required, and that's required. Can you update this OpenAPI to have the schemas associated with each operation? No additional properties allowed, please. Note for update, all fields are optional, so you don't have to specify any. And can you also generate some examples for each and keep everything in JSON? So now, let's go and grab my OpenAPI doc again. Paste that in, and let's let ChatGPT do its work. So what it's going to do is generate me a pretty nice OpenAPI doc. It's going to be easier for me to edit, but critically, it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to add JSON schema for me that validates the input. So now I'm going to have a way of easily enforcing that I'm only sent the right information in the right shape and the right form. And we'll test that in a minute. The other thing it's going to do is it's going to create some examples for me, and my developer documentation is now going to look slick. So let's just let this finish here. It's just going to take a second because we'll take this and we'll paste it back into Zuplo. We'll just make sure everything's working. It's not broken it. Can be a little risky. I think we're almost there. It's on delete now. I wonder if it's finished the schemas. Okay, it's writing the schemas now. So there you can see a schema being generated and we need a different schema for new to do versus update because some have IDs and some don't. So let us go and copy that code. Boom, let's wipe that out. Notice it updates some things pretty nicely. So this, I'm going to change this name though to be my awesome to-do API. It's added lots of information, lots of schemas. So let's just save that change. Okay, everything still looks the same. All my policies are still in place, so everything's looking good. Let's just test that it's working. Great, there's my items coming through. Very nice. And yep, I just created a new to-do item. That's pretty good. And I just updated one. That looks like it worked. So it looks like everything's working great. So what we want to do now is look at the developer documentation. So let's go and take a look. So if you go to the Getting Started tab, you'll notice here you have the gateway URL, but you also have your developer docs. you can customize where this stuff lives. So by default, it is on /docs, but you can actually put it wherever you want on your URL. The default is docs, as it says. I'm going to pop up here and just take a look at this. This is actually dynamically generated based on your OpenAPI doc, and it's going to look pretty awesome. So here we go. We can see this is the Get All To-Dos API. It tells you what it does, and you can add more information if you want here. This is all coming out of Zuplo. You can change the logo. We've got dark mode. We've got light mode. We have the authentication section I'll explain here. And then we have the different methods: create to do, update to do, and delete to do. This is something that you could share with customers that want to use your API, and they can immediately learn what it looks like, to use your API. Now we can even test it, but unfortunately I don't have an API key. So if I test this now, I'm going to get a 401 and authorize. But notice how we use the example that's generated here from OpenAPI to really create a complete experience. It's pretty cool. So let's go into dark mode. And what I'm going to do is actually sign in. Now, if you remember in the last video, let me show you. In the last video, I created an API key consumer, and the manager was josh@zuplo.com. What that means is if I sign in as josh@zuplo.com here, which I just did, so I'm signing in as josh@zuplo.com, it loads up my API key. Actually, I'm just going to show you that again. It feels like I cheated then, and I didn't. So I'm going to sign in as josh@zuplo.com. No keys. Sign in. Continue to Google. It'll automatically sign me in as josh@zuplo.com. There's my logo now, loading my keys. So that is my key. So I can self-serve manage this key. I can roll it. I can edit the label. I can view the request logs. I can even test the API using my API key, and there it is. And there are my results coming back, which is super awesome. Pretty exciting. You see all of them are tagged with my user ID Josh test, so the security is working. And I can create a to-do, like go to the gym. There we go. My API is really doing this. If we go into the Firestore here, you'll see somewhere go to the gym is an actual document that was just created using the test client in our developer portal. I think that's really exciting that we just achieved that so quickly. So now, just with a little bit of help from ChatGPT, we now have a developer portal ready to put this out into the world. The last thing I want to do, though, is add some request validation. So the nice thing here is this is very easy because the schemas are embedded in the OpenAPI document now. All we do is add a policy in here. So if you search for validation, request validation, and we just need to set what we do. We're going to reject and log. So that'll log and it will reject if the body is invalid. So yeah, we'll just keep that name. I'm going to put that right at the front. That should be the first thing we do. We don't need to check API keys. We can just say, hey, look, this doesn't look good. If we like, let's add it to every single. Actually, there is an easier way of doing this. If you go to policies.json, you can say apply policy. You can just stick it on everything. And if we go here, we'll see it's in there. We might need to change the order. So yeah, I need to put it up to the front, up to the front, up to the front. Save that. And now, if I try and do something a little bit wild or make a little mistake, like let's try and create a to-do item, but we're going to put descript, we're going to have a typo in there. Then I get a 400 bad request. Request body did not pass validation. You must have the required property description, must not have additional properties. So instantly we're getting API validation thanks to the ChatGPT generated schema. Pretty awesome. Literally in a matter of probably total 30 minutes, we've gone from having a basic Firestore collection to having a full REST API secured by API key authentication with validation, and now with an awesome developer portal that you can share with anyone. And everything I've shown you here is free. If you do want to put it behind a custom domain, then it's just $25 a month, and you get 100,000 requests, gigabyte of egress, plenty for most APIs getting started, and a very sensible pricing ramp from there on. So what's to lose, Firebase folks? Go and get your API out there. Come back tomorrow. We're going to show you how you can monetize this API using Stripe as your payment provider, and we make that just as easy as we've made everything else.